Greetings and salutations. Thank you for lending an ear to The Voice of the Times this Sunday, October 25, 2020. For today's editorial, relish positive news about economic recovery forecast. Good news may seem like a rare commodity these days, and we heard some from Finance Secretary Carlos Sonny Dominguez III and others who spoke at the Manila Times Business Forum a few days ago. The Secretary foresees a robust recovery for the Philippines in 2021, when gross domestic product is forecast to grow between 6.6% and 7.5%. His rosy outlook echoed earlier statements that the Times heard from the central bank governor and the acting secretary of NEDA, or the National Economic and Development Authority. What sounded different this time from Secretary Dominguez was the assumption that the health crisis was likely to continue. We said in earlier editorials that no one knows when this pandemic will end. In fact, there is a new wave now in Europe and North America, and that the Philippines should prepare for that. The Secretary was in tune with that statement, saying that dealing with COVID-19 was like a marathon, not a sprint. The virus determines the timeline, he added. It might not seem much, but it is reassuring to hear that the plan is not based on hope alone. There are other reasons to feel positive. The stimulus spending of the government is to be followed up by a proposed 4.5 trillion national budget, which was designed to address the pandemic's impact. Secretary Dominguez did acknowledge that the Philippines had been borrowing money to fund its emergency spending, but to date, GIR or gross international reserves are still more than the external debt. He also mentioned that the economy was also shifting to digital. And to address the high cost of internet connectivity and its slow speed, Dr. Rong Chian, senior economist at the World Bank, said the Philippine government has adopted a common tower policy. There are only 20,000 cell towers now, and the country needs 50,000 more in the next 5 years. Dr. Chian added that the World Bank has been working with the Philippine government to reduce the red tape required to build new towers. Earlier, the authorities reported that the processing time to secure permits required to build those has been reduced from 200 days to just 16 days. Regarding extreme poverty, amid the encouraging updates, Dr. Chian did mention something disconcerting, that the pandemic has driven 70 million to 100 million worldwide into extreme poverty. They include Filipinos, but she did not give any figures. For context, the World Bank defines extreme poverty as living on less than $1.90 or 92 pesos per day. Before the pandemic, the Philippines was on track to eradicate extreme poverty by 2040. From 2015 to 2018, the number of Filipinos who consider themselves poor decreased from 23.3% to 16.6%. That means 5.9 million people were uplifted from poverty. In December 2019, the government was confident that it could meet President Rodrigo Duterte's goals of reducing poverty incidence to 14% by 2022 when his term ends. The poverty rate had been falling 2.23 percentage points every year. The pandemic disrupted that trend. But again, the good news is that existing government programs should help address that. Massive public spending on infrastructure, pivot to quality education, and as Secretary Dominguez pointed out in our business forum, tax reform. With that said, the income gap in the Philippines was already bad before the pandemic, and as this crisis pushes even more people into extreme poverty, it can be reasonably assumed that income disparity has been exacerbated. We are not suggesting that the government has forgotten about making the economic recovery inclusive. In fact, it is encouraging to hear the government use the phrase "to heal as one" in its pandemic response initiatives. We can only hope that the officials are being sincere. For now, the public seems to think so, as evidenced by the high popularity ratings of President Duterte. The market also seems to concur, based on the strengthening peso relative to the US dollar. Of course, we should also look at other metrics, but after months of depressing developments, we should relish some good news for a change. And That's the editorial for Sunday, October 25, 2020. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to our digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and listen to The Voice of the Times.